people were found to, they were actually disqualified from the program. But you can see that's a tiny, tiny percentage. Or if you look at murder, the second one from the top, that was one that was quoted in the newspaper. There was one person. So, you guys in your leisure can, go down and look at all of the different crimes. But, of course, this doesn't mean, these are the people that were caught. There's probably more people out, and like Diane said, it's difficult to measure. But my issue was, and what I want to make very clear to the consumers, and I think there's a big difference between 25% fraud and 1% fraud, and that the majority of the people working in the program are providing quality care, and the consumers that are recipients are happy with their provider in most cases. Another thing that we did is our public authority is that we called consumers, and we called about 1,100 consumers, and we asked them a couple of questions. But one of the questions we asked was, have they ever had a provider steal from them or attempt to commit any kind of fiduciary or financial abuse? And 13 out of that 1,100 that they had, which is another huge percentage, 1.1%. So, yes, it happens, but I think consumers, the recipients, need to know that it's maybe not happening as much as the current administration was trying to say that it was, and that, quite honestly, that was a tactic to cut the program, in my opinion. And what the current administration doesn't understand, or when politicians say that there's billions of dollars of fraud in the Medi-Cal system, or they're going to clean up the IHSS system and fund education. These remarks are very damaging to the program. They cause stigma to the program. We had in Los Angeles lost 4,800 providers, and I think a caseload across the state back in, I think it was October, 15,000. It was down 15,000 as far as IHSS recipients. And I think a lot of people got out of the program because they didn't want to be identified with a program that was being labeled as rotten with fraud and full of criminals. And so I think that, as recipients and providers, we need to continue to, educate ourselves and fight against the way they're attempting to cut the program. And I think that one of the issues they're trying to balance the budget on in the backs of the seniors and individuals with disabilities is that the IHS program has grown tremendously. About 7%, I think, over the last 10 years. It's actually doubled. And, I don't think they were prepared for that or understand how to fund it. But it's going to continue to grow because people who are walking around, most who are what we call aging with disabilities, and eventually are going to need long-term care. We're not going to be prepared for that. Bruce Chernoff, the head of ANN, said that people over the ages of 65, 70% of those will use 3 years of long-term care. And in California, about a third of the Californians are able to afford 1 month of long-term care. So I think the IHS program has grown for 2 reasons. People are aging into a disability, and second, because it works very and it's financially effective. Not only is it keeping people in the community and having a strong quality of life, but it's much cheaper. The average IHS recipient is about 87 hours a month, according to Pete Cervenka, and that's about a $13,000 annual cost per individual. And that same individual, they were in a nursing home. The cost is $48,000. So you can see that it's also financially viable to keep people in the community. I think the last thing that I will say is in this new budget in AB 1882. Are you guys hearing that?
Yes. You can say yes.
It was just my phone. Yeah, there's a couple of things to really consider, and I think we need to try to clean up. You know, there's still language in there about consumer fingerprinting. There's still unannounced home visits. There's still the potential of providers getting their pay being delayed. You know, I hate to see the people in the program, you know, being viewed as criminals. And so if you want to take one of my business cards, I believe they're there, or some brochures on Ask. I'd be glad to answer any questions at any time. Please feel free to give me a call. And in that, I'll hang on if people have any questions.
Are there any questions for Greg on Greg's presentation? We're continuing on past our 4 o'clock hour. Can you still hear me?
He can't hear you unless you're talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Greg, we're continuing on past our 4 o'clock hour. So if I'm asking in the room if there are any particular questions for the material you've presented.
Okay.
Anyone? Ms. West?
Hi, Greg, it's Laura again. Can you tell me from the sample that you've looked at of the ones that did go through the criminal offender record information, the CORI, so you received a little over 120,000. How many have yet to do it in Los Angeles, if you're aware?
We don't have that number.
Okay.
You know, we started out with 144,000 providers ballpark, and I think we've done close to over 130,000. It's just hard to come up with that number because there are new providers joining as well as the existing providers.
Right.
But I'm glad you asked that question because it's important for recipients to know that as of December 31st, if your provider has not only done the 3 things they have to do, but they have to actually clear the background check or they'll be disqualified. And so if they wait until December 20th, there's a possibility they may not clear their background check and they'll be disqualified, and then they won't be paid until they do complete the process.
Yes? Yes, go ahead.
Greg seems to have solidified what I was thinking. Laura, I think your examples were wonderful anecdotes, but percentage-wise, I don't think there was a percentage. $2 million is more money than I have, but I don't know how that is on the total budget for Sacramento County.
If I might intercede, Laura can't give us those statistics, is my understanding.
No, actually, there are statistics I can give, and I'd be happy to if I had the venue. I just was, this venue was what it was, and there was a certain amount of time. But I can talk statistics in future, and I have provided some to my own advisory committee, and that's part of what I think the ongoing discussion should be statewide, because it's not a it's not a black and white thing. And for example, that there was only 1.29 people of those that went through the screening in Los Angeles that had that conviction. That doesn't mean that every one of those people would commit fraud, but whatever percentage that did, you wouldn't necessarily know what percentage fraud they were committing themselves, because you really look at the dollars that are lost, and one person can lead to a lot of dollars being lost. And that's the part that's kind of hard to quantify, but we do have sample, we have data that gives us ideas. But I think that it's really important for everyone to be talking statewide and putting their numbers together so a more reliable picture emerges. It's not so simple as saying, okay, 1.92%, we can't assume every one of those people would commit it. And I've seen fraud committed by plenty of people that had 0 criminal backgrounds. And so people with criminal backgrounds aren't the only ones doing it. So that's only a part of the picture. I think there's like a big jigsaw puzzle, right? Not all, you have to put all the pieces together before the picture emerges. And this is just one piece. And the things I have are just one piece. And I'm happy to share my pieces. But today for the topic, I didn't bring those statistics.
Well,
You're absolutely right. I think that we need to look at statistics. The issue I have is not with you and the DAs trying to protect the providers and the consumers. The issue that I had is that the media and the administration are allowed to make these blanket statements with no facts at all. And like, even I asked, why did you choose these crimes on this extended list? What's the statistics? How many consumers have, been harmed in the past or violated or had these crimes committed against them? They don't know. Like they pull these numbers out of a hat. So I fully agree with you. We have to work together, not against each other.
Exactly. I agree with Greg. And that, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Laura jumped in.
I'm sorry.
With reference to statistics that I haven't seen yet. No, I think that generally, when you do good studies of this type of thing, whether it was welfare in Florida 40 years ago, or if it's IHSS in California today, that you said there were only 80 cases of underpayment, but 500 of over. I mean, that every study I've seen usually shows just as many errors being made in underpayment as there are in overpayment. And usually they're just stupid errors rather than fraud. But you don't hear about that. I think that we've allowed the public, the politicians, to make this, oh, this is a place we can get money. Let's get the people riled up and afraid of all these thieves, all these drug addicts. And I think we have to look at it with a big picture of it, not just there were 500 cases of overpayment.
No, I appreciate that, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying there was 500 of over and 88 of under. What I'm saying is largely social workers, but community members, reported to us 1,324 circumstances of what they believed were fraud. And we looked at 588 of them to determine had money gone out that shouldn't have. We weren't even considering the issue of underpayments. That's a whole different part of the puzzle. We're not working on it. The part that we're working on was, okay, people said this was fraud. Let's look at it. 588 of it we looked, and we found that money had gone out that should not have in at least 500 of those examples. And those specific statistics we provided to our Board of Supervisors, and it was made public. And so the actual breakdown, I apologize, that is an estimate on my part of what was or what wasn't. But of the 500 that money went out that should not have, we know that was $2 million. And so that the only reason I bring that up is to say, to me, that is a problem worth tackling. And it's not to make a condemnation of the program or to, disparage any particular recipient, but to say that that happened, and so it's worth us going after that and preventing that from happening in the future. The area of underpayments, I'm sure that is, a whole other issue. It's just not the part of the puzzle I'm working on.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the reasons I felt very strongly about having this session and having Ms. West specifically as our guest is because of my own experience, having been investigated myself for IHSS fraud and survived. I know that it is not our right to know that we're being investigated, nor is it our right to get in writing, as I requested, that we've been exonerated, which left me feeling very vulnerable. But I was also able to have a relationship with develop a relationship with my investigator and his supervisor, and learn. We learned from one another